Tonight on Let It Rip.
To go on what was going to be what felt like or what was a sham interview, I was hurt.
Former Miami Dolphins head coach now suing the NFL, the New York Giants, and the Denver Broncos for racial discrimination. And Brian Flores says before he was fired in Miami, the owner, billionaire Detroit native Stephen Ross, tried to bribe him to lose games. But first.
If you see something you don't like happening with the machines, if you see something going on, unplug it from the wall.
After his fellow Republican tells poll workers to show up armed on Election Day, Ryan Kelley says people should unplug voting machines if they suspect fraud. Tonight, Ryan Kelley is here to explain what he really wants. Time to let it rip. On the panel tonight, Republican strategist and consultant Jamie Rowe, author, activist, and Democrat Greg Bowens, former talk show host of The Bryce is Right, the black conservative from Detroit, Brandon Bryce, and as always, anchor attorney Charlie Langton. But we begin tonight with the original R. Kelley, Ryan Kelley, one of the 12 Republicans running for governor, this year zooming from Kalamazoo. Mr. Kelley, thank you for being here.
Very good to be here, sir. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
Well, Mr. Kelley, you made what some call a shocking statement to a meeting of poll workers in Livingston County a few days ago, telling them, quote, that if they see something they don't like with the voting machines, to unplug it from the wall. So what are you saying? That if the vote totals showing that you're losing on election night are wrong, or that you don't like them, you're just going to turn off the machines?
Interesting when you take one snippet of a part of a conversation and then you can turn it into a media story that has gone all over the nation now, right? It's the talk of the town all across Michigan and nationally too, right? CNN picked it up. I think there were some other national stories. And the context of the story was not even with a group of poll workers and election workers. It was a group of concerned citizens that were there, able to connect with candidates and A, hear what we had to offer as candidates, and B, Q&A to discuss things. And we were talking specifically about election workers. If individuals are working the next election, which they should be, we need to step up as Republicans and work the next election. No more sitting at home wondering what the results are. And it was brought up about the machines. Lots of people across the state have issues with the electronic voting machines in the state of Michigan and how it was handled in 2020. And they're rightfully concerned. And so as we were diving into the conversation, I said, absolutely, that if you are working the election and you see fraud happening, unplug the machine, take control of the situation, and don't allow what happened in 2020 to happen again in 2022.
So you then believe that Donald Trump won the election here in Michigan, despite numerous attempts to look at the votes. 154 vote margin is what Biden won by. And you do realize that tampering with voting machines is illegal, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the 2020 election and the results of how that turned out, we see a large spectrum of people's feedback between anywhere irregularities and yes, it was stolen. And we even seen a recent poll come out that over 50% of Democrats believe that there was some sort of foul play in the 2020 eletion.
You believe the election was stolen?
My personal belief, it was outright stolen. Absolutely. And that there was massive fraud that skewed the results of the election. Matt DePerno, who in Antrim County, who's running for Attorney General, took forensic images of the Dominion voting machines and proved that there was vote switching. Now, I say that if we want to find unity in our country, if we want to find unity in our state, allow, whether it's Matt DePerno or someone like him, to take forensic images of all the voting machines. Let's just find out what the truth is, because you have half the state that believes one thing, you have another portion of the state that believes that there was no fraud, and you have some people, I think, that are unengaged and don't care. But nonetheless, we're at a big divide of something where if we just take the forensic images, don't play that there was audits, because there wasn't audits. There was small little samplings, but we haven't done a true audit like what was done in Antrim County.
Well, at that same meeting, your fellow Republican, Mike Detmer, who's running for state Senate, said that if we can't change the tide, be prepared to lock and load and show up armed. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so Mike's statement, he made separate of anything that that I was talking about. I know that he's been on several shows talking about his stance on that. I'm a strong Second Amendment supporter. I'd like to see constitutional carry in the state of Michigan.
And you want your supporters to show up to the, you want your supporters to show up to the polls armed? Is that what you're advocating?
So that was not even what he said, number one, which was also
I'm asking about you. Is that what you would like to see?
Would I like to see
your supporters show up to the polls armed? And is that not voter intimidation?
I guess there's lots of different ways to look at that. So, are they open carrying? Are they concealed carrying? So you have to look at those different points and everything like that. I'm not asking anybody to do anything specific when it comes to the Second Amendment. I didn't make those comments. The Article 1, Section 6 of the Michigan Constitution is very clear. The Second Amendment is very clear as well. Voter intimidation should never happen on either side. Voter tampering with the machines or anything like that should never happen. I would never advocate for violence, number one, nor do I want to see any fraud in our elections. We want fair, valid elections across the board.
Let me go to Bryce. Bryce, look, you heard from R. Kelley. So how do you explain what has happened to the Grand Old Party when you have people like Kelley and Detmer apparently willing to go a long way just to get their way, possibly even to the limits of breaking the law?
Well, let me actually put the key in this ignition. One of the challenges and one of the beauties of this nation is you have the right to say something as odd or as crazy as that is. But here's the reality is that we've always had issues with our voting system. This is not new. And so I think that the challenge is to say that there's something wrong with the voting system. That's accurate. But there's another issue here is this
Is it wrong because you lost? Or is it wrong because you don't like the outcome? Is that the problem?
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, if we're going to look at numbers, let's look at sheer numbers. There are those who think that Donald Trump won and the election was stolen. But the reality is Republicans outside of the presidency actually did better in that election. So I don't know who we're looking at, but the reality is people have a right to say what they want. Where we've got an issue where now we're talking about, is the party prepared to win in 2022 and 2024? That needs to be the focus, not what somebody says off cuff.
Well, Greg, as a Democrat, what worries you most? Facing people like Kelley at the polls or the problems of inflation and the pandemic, the many voters so angry and frustrated?
I laugh when you say facing people like Kelley at the polls because, the stuff that they're saying is completely outrageous. It's crazy. Yeah, you could say, Brandon, I appreciate you. And Jamie, I know you're on here and, God bless you, man. I never thought I'd meet anybody that was a little to the right of you. But this idea that somehow the election was stolen is what led to the insurrection on January 6th. Now, we're watching this and, I feel for my brothers and sisters on the Republican side who are trying to, navigate their way through all this foolishness. And it would be laughable if it wasn't so serious. If it wasn't so serious, undermining people's trust in the elections. We're not talking about some county clerk election or some school board election or some block club captain election where people are talking about things are wrong. We're talking about folks who are saying that our overall system doesn't work. And this comes on the heels of discussions that have been going on the right. I'm not saying you, Brandon, or you, Jamie, about the very nature of our government and whether or not our representative government works. And so it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier, in what these guys are talking about. Can you carry a gun into a poll place? Unplug the machines? Of course those things are illegal. Of course that's crazy. And it makes no sense. And all it does is
where can you show me where it says it's illegal?
All it does is ratchet up the nonsense. Now,
Jamie,
if Brian Kelley was focused in on the issues, that would be something. But hey, you know what? I feel for you guys, man. And all I can say is God bless America and God save our country with these
Jamie,
kind of rules running
Jamie,
around.
let me bring you in because, that's a question. Where are the moderate voices right now? People like Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, and even former President Bush seem to be ignored or even attacked these days. What's going on?
You know what? I think what's happening right now is there's a lot of polarization in our political environment. When you had President Biden basically going down and say, if you want people to show a voter ID, show an ID before they vote, that they're the second coming of Bull Connor and Jefferson Davis. I mean, that kind of rhetoric doesn't help the process either. And I don't want anybody, when they go to vote next time, to unplug the machine. I want them to plug their ballot into the machine and make sure their voices are heard. Every voter out there who's eligible should go out and exercise that right. We've had countless of our forefathers who've given their lives so that we can cast our ballots in freedom. And I want everybody who's eligible to get out and vote, plug that ballot in, make your voice heard, and show your ID before you do it. That's all I care about.
Well, Ryan, we're running out of time here. But before you go, I want to know if you plan to make a trip to Florida. We know that Donald Trump showed up at a rally for your opponent, Tudor Dixon, the other night. We know that James Craig has been down to Mar-a-Lago as well. So do you have any plans to go down south and kiss the ring to get Donald Trump's endorsement?
I think the people's vote is the most important thing to win, number one. And let's just say that there's definitely some discussions that I've had with people that may lead to something like that at some point in the future. Until then, we're going to be traveling across the state of Michigan, connecting with voters up here, continuing to share my 100-day plan, continuing to spread my message across the state of Michigan, and we'll see what the future holds. It's going to be a very interesting spring and summer in the state of Michigan as we replace Whitmer in the November election here.
Well, we thank you for appearing on Let It Rip tonight, and we know there will be more discussions ahead. Thank you. All right, panel, we got to end it right there, but stay with us. Coming up, we'll take a look at that new lawsuit accusing the NFL of racism in the hiring of head coaches. That and more when Let It Rip continues. Welcome back to The Rip. On the panel right now, two of your Fox 2 favorites, the always opinionated, always entertaining Brian Armani and Lee Thomas from The Nine. You've already met Jamie and Charlie, so we begin tonight with a sports reporting legend. He spent decades covering sports for the Detroit News and Free Press, later co-hosting sports shows on some of the biggest radio stations in town. Terry Foster's back, everybody, and we're happy to see him. Terry, Brian Flores filed this bombshell lawsuit against the NFL claiming racial discrimination in the hiring of black coaches. Is this a case of righteous indignation, or is he just angry because the Dolphins fired him?
Well, both. He's angry because the Dolphins fired him. And when you look at the landscape of coaching, he shouldn't have been fired. But you go way back to the NFL and the way that they've treated black coaches, he's angry about that too. He is now the Colin Kaepernick of black head coaches in the NFL. He'll never get a job again.
Brian Flores also makes the shocking allegation in that lawsuit that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offered him $100,000 for each loss the team suffered back in 2019 to give Miami a better draft pick. If that's true, that could mean that Ross will have to sell a team.
It would just change, send the NFL on ear. We suspect that there's cheating in the NFL. We suspect teams change, but we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear an owner paying someone $100,000. So this could be a big rebellion if this lawsuit is true.
Ryan, what's your take?
Huel, when this lawsuit first came out, to me, I understand that, look, there's 32 teams in the NFL. There's one black head coach. I understand this is a major issue in this sport specifically. But when this specific allegation came out that Stephen Ross allegedly offered Brian Flores $100,000 to lose games, then you take something. Stephen Ross has denied that allegation emphatically, by the way. However, if proven true, you go from an allegation off the field in terms of hiring practices. Now you put it squarely in between the lines where you are affecting the outcome of a game. That, to me, is something that gets your franchise taken from you. That borders on criminal. Look, the NFL is in bed with gambling casinos all over the place now. Billions of dollars are now legally wagered on these games. If there's a team in that club that is trying to lose games, this to me is the bombshell of all bombshells. If proven, I mean, this could be criminal.
But Lee, you've seen this movie before. A young man steps up to right a great wrong against enormous odds. Now, Flores may be brave, but he's apparently just destroyed his entire career. Will he win or will he be gone?
Yeah, I think there's a chance that he's going to be gone. And I think he knew that going in. He has a team of lawyers. He's not an unintelligent man. And they all have calculated the risk here. They thought about what they were going to do. They had that final interview, and then they did it after the New York Giants interview. So I think he understood the ramifications of what he was doing and understands that this may be the end. Colin Kaepernick just took a knee. He didn't say anything. He took a knee. That dude is gone. He hasn't played it down in the NFL since. Now, this coach, 40 years old, has 2 interviews to go, but he's stepping out. A lot of people say stepping out on faith, saying, if you want to be this NFL, be this. I have 2 more interviews to go. Make this a fair process. Talk about what we can change. The lawsuit, I think he was just trying to make a point. NFL has arbitration anyway, Q. We all know that. It's never going to get to court. They're going to figure it out before it even gets there. So I think that Coach Flores was trying to make a point. He's made his point. The ball is in the NFL's court.
Well, Jamie, I'm still mad about what happened to Jim Caldwell.
Me too.
Get the Lions fired him, a winning coach, to hire a white guy who did nothing but lose. How do you explain that?
You know what? Jim Caldwell had a record of 28-24 as the Lions head coach, took us to the playoffs twice, and quite honestly, got screwed by the NFL in that game against Dallas, where we should have won that game and had it taken from. I feel like as a Detroit Lions fan, we should file a class action lawsuit against the NFL and the officiating that's done to Detroit Lions in the playoffs, because we've had it taken from us multiple times. But I'll tell you what, Brian Flores, I look at this thing. This guy's record was 24-25. Heck of a lot better than Matt Patricia, who replaced Jim Caldwell with the Detroit Lions. And that one coach that's in the NFL right now, African-American coach that's in the NFL, Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers, 162-93 record. Man, we would kill for that in Detroit, and a Super Bowl win. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with this case. I think you're all right that this guy's career is likely over and there isn't another job that's coming for him in the NFL, whether he deserves it or not. He likely does deserve it, given his record with the Dolphins. But this case, NFL is fraught with danger here, man. They're on a major upswing now with what these ratings have been throughout these playoffs, which have been incredible, quite frankly. And, you know, as a Lions fan, the closest we're probably ever going to get to a Super Bowl. So watch Matthew Stafford play this weekend, or next weekend. So this is going to be interesting how this comes out. And, you know, could we get Coach Caldwell back? I wouldn't mind getting him back.
Amen to that.
You know, here's the sad thing is, you know, I still try to keep my pulse with the fans. I still hear from people who say the Lions made the right move. They made the right move in firing Caldwell and bringing in Matty Fatty. You know,
Terry, I think
I don't
the
know
Lions
who you're
did
talking
make,
to.
Terry,
I have no idea who you're talking to.
I raise my hand. I think the Lions did make the right move in firing Jim Caldwell. Their huge mistake was hiring Matt Patricia. That set the franchise back 7 to 10 years. Look, Jim Caldwell, if you measure Jim Caldwell against other Lions coaches, great, awesome. But the Lions are one of the worst franchises in the history of the NFL. In his time in Detroit, he was 4-23 against winning teams. Had the chance to win the division twice in 4 years and lost on the final Sunday of the season. Couldn't get over that hump. In 2016, had a 3-game lead in the division with a 2-game lead with 3 weeks to play. Lost 3 in a row. Didn't even score a touchdown in the playoffs. And then in 2017, they didn't even make the playoffs. So I think it was okay to fire him. It was just a colossal mistake to hire Matt Patricia.
But the reason Matt Patricia got the job was because of Good Old Boys Club.
That's right. 100%.
Was a general manager. Charlie, let me bring you in here, too, because we're talking about millionaires fighting billionaires. Charlie, you read the lawsuit. You know what it takes to win this kind of case. What do you think is going to happen?
I think the problem with this lawsuit actually is that when you make allegations that somebody paid $100,000, you better be able to back that up. Because if you cannot back that up, if no other witness comes in to further your story, collaborate your story, I think you've got a real problem. Now, listen, you guys may be right. This is a sports question about racial equality in coaching in the NFL. That may be an issue here. But I don't know that the way to do this is by making these outrageous allegations. I think he's got a lot to prove. Now, is there a problem in the NFL? There may very well be. And if there is, make a lawsuit so that's the issue, not this other stuff that we're all going to be distracted from right now. I think there is a problem with racial equality in coaching in the NFL. Look at the numbers. We just said it. You guys know it better than I do, for sure. But the way to go there and you sue every NFL team, every single one, you're never going to get a job. No one's going to hire you when you're being sued. So he better be right, and I'm worried about his credibility.
Look, panel, let's be fair. These are accusations. I've seen no evidence at all that Stephen Ross is a racist. This is a guy who grew up in Detroit. He went to Muppet High School, has given hundreds of millions of dollars to the University of Michigan, given tens of millions to programs to help achieve equality. Look, Stephen Ross is not Donald Sterling of the Clippers. Stephen Ross is not somebody who goes around using the N-word. There's a difference between the character of the man you're talking about now and somebody who was forced to sell the team like Sterling years ago.
Sure. Donald Sterling wouldn't turn into Donald Sterling until he got caught. I don't know Stephen Ross. I don't know his background. I don't know everything that he's done. I didn't know Bill Cosby until he got caught. Okay, so I'm just saying, let's just if there's evidence, let the evidence speak for itself. I don't know Stephen Ross. And maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I do know the NFL. And if there's going to be any kind of change, much like in a newsroom, it has to start at management. It has to start at ownership. It has to trickle down. The NFL needs to address that issue. It is an issue. And no matter what they say, this coach was man enough to stand up and say, look, I don't know if it's going to work for him to get a job, but it will work for him standing up for what's right, period.
Well, the NFL right now has the Rooney Rule. It requires NFL teams to interview at least 2 minority candidates for any head coaching job. But some of the coaches I've talked to say it's a complete sham. So what's the solution?
It is a sham, but you have to have it. Because if you don't have the Rooney Rules, guess what? Black people are not even going to get interviewed. I'd rather have a sham interview, maybe a light bulb will pop up on somebody's head, than not get one at all. So that's the dilemma that we're in now. But when you listen to coaches or listen to GMs or owners who hire people, one of the first things they say, I work with this guy, I like him, we hang out as so they know each other. When Black people are in an interview, we're like, who are all these people? I have no idea who anybody is. When the white guy comes in, he's slapping each other. They're slapping each other on the back. Say, hey, what's up, brother? We had a good time at the party last week. And Black folks are like, okay, I'm in this room. I have no idea who anybody is. That's a big difference right there.
It's time for Black people to buy these teams. I think what we really need is to have ownership by African Americans. And that would be the real goal.
There you go, Charlie. That's where I'm going, Charlie. Absolutely. Or let the fans own the team. Like what team does that? There's
Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Green Bay, the only one.
That's the only one. Let the fans own the team. It's our city.
Hey, Huel, one point I'd like to make too, because I think Charlie said it right in that, in this lawsuit, there's just so much information out there. And I think, part of the Stephen Ross question had nothing to do with racism. The Stephen Ross portion of this allegation had nothing to do with racism. That was the ethical part of this lawsuit, not the racial component to NFL hiring. And I think when Charlie said there was just so much in this lawsuit packed into it, I think that's an important distinction to make. I don't think Brian Flores is claiming that Stephen Ross is a racist. I think he's saying that he's unethical. And that's a big difference.
Yeah, and he better be right. Nothing has to be, it better be out of order, else this whole thing blows up. When you make accusations like that, it better have happened.
Terry Foster, he's a millionaire sitting next to 2 lawyers. You think he's making a baseless allegation nationally against the NFL and a billionaire owner? Come on.
No, but people make stuff up. I'm just saying, he better be right. It better have happened.
Well, panel, look, we thank you for your comments. We're in the beginning of what could be a very long process. Who knows how this game is going to end?